Vous êtes bien sur Headbanging en compagnie de Johannes, le chanteur d'Avatar.
Bonjour.
How are you?
Très bien.
Great, he speaks French, so we
I'm
are
out
going
of
to
French
give it a
words
try.
now. Yeah, that was all.
Oh, shame. Not a shame, but maybe it would have been great if we had a...
As we are in Germany, I was hoping that you would speak German as you came here, because I need the practice.
I spoke
that I
a
do
little
speak.
German when I was younger, but really my German is really bad.
Yeah, mine is not what it used to be. Anyway, glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here too, and that we can finally do this interview. So, you are currently on tour to defend your new album. Can you tell us a bit more about it? The content?
Well, what we have right now is... how do I put this? We have reached a point in our lives and career where and in a relationship with our audience that we finally felt we were able to tell the truth of our king and open up the borders to Avatar country. And in doing so, and as the main subject of what we've been writing about has been about our king, that has influenced the music to be, I think, way more positively charged than anything we ever have done, and I believe ever will do. So it's an album about strength and victory and life, as opposed to for past albums being more about fear, weakness, death. So it's some sun shining in the world of Avatar for a bit.
Okay, you talked about your king. Why did you particularly choose to have Tim as your king?
Jonas.
Okay.
Tim is but a humble servant.
Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, the second guitarist. That's why I was... So why did you choose Jonas?
Here's the thing, no one chooses a king. A king is born to be king.
Okay.
Destiny chooses a king. Birthright chooses a king. And we have always known that he was the king. If you look at our earlier works, you will see, in the list of thanks that you give to people in every album, in our booklets, you will see at the end of the list is a special thanks to Kungen, which is Swedish for the king. So again, it was not now that we made a choice, it was just the choice that we made was to finally reveal the truth.
Okay, and the strength of the album really reflects the strength of your king. You are really proud of him, I think. He's really a good king.
He's a very glorious leader. Because he's unique in that way, or Avatar country is a unique nation in that way that all other, let's put it like this, that people sometimes wonder why we isn't having a kingdom kind of undemocratic, and of course it is. But the thing is, we have the king as king, and he's the only leader in the history of the world with 100% approval rating. So having a public election for a king would just be a waste of time because everyone would vote for him anyway.
Okay. It could be great if all the countries were like that.
Yeah, but the thing is that the rest of the countries, from Sweden to Belgium to wherever, are stuck with just having the choice of picking from normal human beings, mere mortals, while in Avatar country the choice fell upon, what basically is a god in human form. So it's natural that other countries need some form of democracy, need some checks and balances. We don't need that in Avatar country because our king was again chosen by destiny and the metal gods. So it's a very different situation.
Yeah, and you don't have any project maybe to, I don't know, not invade, but to conquer other countries so that we could have a king as great as this one?
Well, we're making state visits, like the one we do here today in Cologne. And it's more, I don't know if you ever play the computer game Civilization.
Like Age of Empires?
You have. Well, no, yeah, kind of. But in Civilization, you can take over the world also in a peaceful manner. It's kind of hard, but it's called cultural victory, where the other city-states just join your country because of your cultural, economical superiority, basically. People just want to be part of that greatness. And that is what's happening. We're not taking over the world by brute force. We're just taking over the world by setting an example of greatness. And also because our king doesn't really want to eradicate other countries, other cultures. Because as much as Avatar country is a place, more than anything, it's a place in your heart, and you can carry that nation with you everywhere. Which is why our king accepts dual citizenship. You can still keep your Belgian passport and be a citizen of Avatar country at the same time, if Belgium accepts that. But I know on our end we do.
Okay, well, great. I think we should, pass the word
You
through this
totally
interview.
should. Also, you can be a citizen of Avatar country.
Anybody can. So in the song Glory to Our King, this is a rendition of the Swedish royal anthem.
No, it's an Avatar country royal anthem.
Okay.
The Swedish one goes Du gamla, du fria, du fjällhöga nord, and so on. It's completely different. This is the Avatar country national anthem.
Okay, so this information I had came from a website called Metal Archives, .com. So if you want to have a rectification about that, you can send them a mail.
I think Metal Archives has been useful to me sometimes to check where different members used to be and stuff. It's a good source for that, but it's also kind of the Yelp homepage of the metal world.
So maybe they were not really aware of the greatness of Avatar country,
or
and they were
something might have been incorrectly translated. But it's I think what people kind of misunderstand, because the individual members of Avatar, we also have dual citizenship, so we also are deeply rooted in the Swedish society. However, when I've been talking about our national anthem of Avatar country, it doesn't mean our as Swedes.
Okay.
So I think that might be the misconception where it stems from.
Is there a kind of influence between your Swedish identity and your Avatarian identity?
Well,
I don't know.
I think that Sweden, of course, Avatar country is of course the number one greatest metal nation on the planet, but I would argue that Sweden is at least in the top 5. So they are closely tied together like that, And of course, us, most of us having grown up in Sweden and being shaped by rehearsing and playing our first shows there and stuff, and coming from Swedish West Coast specifically, has of course influenced us a lot in many ways, yes.
Okay, so we have talked about your new album. We have both noticed with Guillaume that since your 3rd and 5th album, so the period Black Vaults and Hail the Apocalypse, there was a kind of shift in your maybe musical identity. Why did you choose to move to another style? Have you noticed this change or not? Maybe. Yeah,
of course. But it wasn't as much a choice as it was natural progression. Because you have to remember, we started this band very young, and people who didn't start it joined it very young, and we learned how to play music together. We learned how to tune the guitars together, and we got to release our first album. We got a record deal when we were 18 and 19 years old, so kids basically. And I think it's not surprising that a lot would happen in our musical development, artistic development along the way, and that means that some changes would be more radical than others, because we are again talking about our Swedish West Coast roots. What we did in the beginning, I would say, was some kind of mix between, technical death metal and more melodic death metal. Like two of the bands that we all agreed on were heavy influences on us. I would say 3 bands actually that meant about the equal things to all the members would have been The Haunted, Cryptopsy, and In Flames. So again, some melodic death metal and some extra technical and extreme stuff. And we tried, we were in that world. But as we started to, get older, and I don't like the word mature, but develop musically, we just were able to start to put other emotions into the music, and we started to just approach what metal means to us in a different way, and we started to be able to articulate that, and that kind of culminated with Black Waltz, or the real starting point would be there at least, we by removing an idea of a formula or expectation of what a song would be, we kind of got to the bottom with what metal is according to us, and it's fairly simple that in metal the riff is king. and the riff is groove. And you have to have that great groove, even if you do something that is more, more extreme and more death metal oriented. There still should be a great groove there. A certain sound is created when musicians who have played together for a while perform something. There's so much light in the performance. So we are first and foremost looking for that, to not only write a kick-ass riff, but to figure out what the drum is supposed to do, and then just through that create some kind of emotion and something that creates a vision in your mind. And once you have that, you just follow the music where it needs to go. Sometimes it's more straightforward, almost trivial, just, rocking out, kind of like, I don't know, at that time would be Let It Burn. Sometimes it's way more psychedelic, like Use Your Tongue, if we talk about the Black Waltz album. And that was just a question of, what does this riff tell us to do now? And that kind of reasoning started at Black Waltz and has kept going since. So it kind of freed us. And now it's all about just trying to, outwrite yourself, outperform ourselves, and never write the same song twice. And we just trust that we will always sound like Avatar because we are the guys that we are. That the sound of a band lies within the musician, not so much which chords they play at a given time. Not every song needs to contain an E minor and a D7 to sound like Avatar. We feel like we can do whatever, as long as I sing, John plays drums, and the guys, are bending the strings, it will be Avatar.
Okay, so you told me that really the music told you something, so you first create the musical part and then you add your lyrics. So
at times I have ideas that are like older than the music might be, but it's still about my way of feeling that I like this can be a song, is if it makes me feel something. Because if it makes me feel something, the song tells me what I can write about to it. And there's also why I was just talking to my fiance actually about the difference between so I write a lot. Obviously, I would be considered some sort of writer because I professionally put words on paper. And often those words rhyme. I still wouldn't consider myself a poet professionally, if you know what I mean. Because what I do is the words I put there are always kind of like a slave to the music. It's equal. It's whatever I choose to write about and how I decide to write it. It's connected as much to the music as it is to what I want to say. Meaning that is why I would see myself as a lyricist. If I'm to make a distinction between what a poet would be and a lyricist would be. If Arthur Rimbaud is a poet, but that is purely the words.
Poetry,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's because also words can be musical in and out of themselves, and that goes beyond rhythm and melody. So yeah.
Okay, great. Now, if you had to, how would you define your music? You talked about melodic death metal, and now, what about now?
I'm not sure. I started to view heavy metal as a much wider term than I did when I was younger. Because when I was younger, it was more like, okay, I like heavy metal, I like death metal, I like black metal, power metal. I do not like new metal. Turns out that I love Slipknot and System of a Down, so there you go. If they're new metal, then I like new metal. But it was more in categories like that. And I remember hearing, and the days when I thought that I wouldn't like any sort of new metal, I remember hearing on the radio Slipknot playing a show in Sweden, and they talked about being a heavy metal band, and I said, "Fuck no, you're not." I thought back then, but now I have redefined what heavy metal means to me. And how we all come from the same place, ultimately. Even Dark Throne has Chuck Berry to thank for something. Just the journey, how things go. And so therefore, we are all some sort of rock and roll at the end of the day, which means we are all some kind of dance music. And then just so much has happened along the way, of course. And artistically, it's something completely different. But for that reason, and because I don't put heavy rules on what we are doing, I don't know, like, so I would call it heavy metal, but we try to do it in a new way. We try to, again, to write songs that haven't been written yet, and just we want to have those qualities of the greats, of the real classics like Judas Priest. But the thing is, when you say something like that, it sometimes gives people this idea that it has to be very retro. If you love heavy metal, you kind of have to do heavy metal in a retro way, and I disagree, because when British Steel came out, that week, that was the most modern heavy metal album you can imagine. That wasn't old school heavy metal, because that particular blend of things didn't exist and sound like that back then, you know? So for that reason, I don't know, like, I just consider us heavy metal. But of course there are a lot of death metal stuff going on in our music. A lot of it. Like, we are all big death metal fans. But again, I don't feel I have to growl in every song if the song doesn't ask for it. I feel like brutality is an important tool in our music, but it's not an end goal in and out of itself. Meaning that it wouldn't, as a huge death metal fan, I cannot say that we are a death metal band. We are far from it, but it plays a huge role in what we're doing. And you know, so melodic death metal, sure, but again, like, having grown up with all those bands from Gothenburg and other places, I feel like they carry a completely different vibe from what we are doing. And you know, and then again, we sound different than the classics that we are so heavily influenced by, that then people would talk about us being a new metal band for that reason. And I go, again, like, what is that then? Because if new metal is rapping, then no, like, and we don't always use clean vocals in the chorus, you know. And then you have these other genres. Well, like 10 years ago, everything was core something, except that nothing sounded like hardcore sounded at some point, but still was metalcore, deathcore, or whatever. And I never quite understood what that meant. That was the first time I started to feel like an old man in music. Not that I didn't like it, but just the distinctions weren't clear to me. So I don't feel like we fit in there either. I just feel like we're heavy metal, but it's not 1981 anymore. And we cannot beat Judas Priest at their game. And neither would we want to try. We want to beat ourselves in our own game.
Okay, really interesting. That's great. You know, to tell the people who are listening to metal that we create labels like death metal, melodic, and
so do I, you know,
yeah,
as a listener.
It's difficult, and maybe we don't really have the same definition of it. It's interesting.
Well, there
to
are always
talk
these
about
thing
that
we all can agree on, that Cannibal Corpse is a death metal band, and Iron Maiden is a heavy metal band, and Ramones is punk. You know, yeah, there it becomes pretty. It's pretty easy that far, and you know, but then I don't know where we would place Gojira now today, for instance. Yeah. So I think in general we are in this period of, you know, where it's kind of flowing into each other. You know, I don't like another example today would be who would I pick? Like, I don't know, like Behemoth. That in many ways it's so like it tickles my black metal nerve.
Because
a lot
they
when
have
I listen
changed.
to it. Yeah, but also like, and you got the death metal there, but you also have something that is simply Behemoth. Yeah. That doesn't sound like Dissection or Marduk or whatever black metal band that was before that came out before them, you know. And same with Gojira, same with Flesh God Apocalypse. It's obviously some kind of, you know, it's very technical, very death metal, very symphonic. Is it symphonic death metal? That only feels like it tells half the story. And then if you start to say it's technical, avant-garde, symphonic death metal, then it gets stupid suddenly, you know? So we're in an interesting period where many bands in different ways are crossing over back and forth. And it's a great, interesting time to be in.
So on your third album, you also became to wear a face paint.
Yeah, on the fourth, actually.
Fourth, okay. Yeah. Why so?
Well, that's again, it's Black Waltz, and that's the whole era of the riff needs to be groovy, and let's do whatever we want, and stop worrying about what other people would want from us, or let's not try to impress anyone but ourselves. All those things happened, which had that the music fell into place in a way it hadn't before. And as that fell into place, started to open up our minds towards other things we always wanted to do, to also have a band that we want our music to look like something, smell and feel like something, and to be that the art of the band would go go beyond the music. So we were looking for something, and as we were looking for something, we put me in a lake that we lit on fire with some lamp oil. And the guy who helped us doing that, his name is Bryce Graves, and he's on tour with us as we speak, leading Hälsopappen. And as we worked together that summer in Sweden, we figured, let's do a music video together for that weird waltz song we have on the album that would end up being named Black Waltz. And as we did that, we just needed me to fit into the context of what was going on in the music video. And so I guess, it's a circus thing, I can be a scary clown. And I was a scary clown, and it just clicked with everything else around that song. It went further. We went way beyond the just that song or just that music video. It clicked, and we had found what our music looks like, if you get what I mean. So that was just a starting point, and it still feels like the right way to visualize our music. Still makes sense.
Many people asked me why did you... Are there any influences like the Joker?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many men with painted faces that I have been into growing up, which is of course why it clicked with me, that something was triggered that was in me, and part of that is people that I've been admiring in the music world, professional wrestling world, and movie world. So there's a lot of the Joker there, in particular the cartoon Joker voiced by Mark Hamill. That's my favorite. And then you have Clockwork Orange, and then you have what's it called, from the movie The Crow, had a bit to do with it, and then professional wrestlers like Sting and the Ultimate Warrior. So there are all these, he gets it. So there are all these different places from it, and then of course it and or also more friendly forms of clowns and mimes, and just the whole circus atmosphere, and the different forms of traveling, performing people, and the mysticism of that. All these things influenced me a lot. So it comes from many different directions. Okay.
Yes, your song Feathers and Flesh from Newland, so the previous album, was on the 20th position on the Billboard Mainstream Rock Songs chart in May 2017. How did you feel about that?
I didn't feel anything in particular about that. No, charts are, they are what they are. It means that someone is listening, and that is good. Okay. So to that extent, I'm glad it happened. But I notice it when we play a show and people sing along to the song and are happy to hear it, and we get to perform it live. That beats any charts. And also because in modern times we all bands end up on some kind of chart because it depends on how you count. I'm sure there's a chart for Swedish bands born in 86 and 87 who released a concept album in the month of May 2016 with songs titled New Land. On that list we were number one. So I mean, the only thing, if we would actually end up being the number one, the one that Michael Jackson and the Beatles and Elvis Presley or whatever had many of, that is a cause for celebration for me. Other than that, it's just it's just this news. It's a marketing tool more than anything, and at the same time, some kind of evidence that someone out there is listening. But I get better evidence during our shows.
Okay, and have you noticed that maybe the audience of your shows has changed in some ways? I don't know, younger people, older people, face painted people, like I don't know.
Well, more and more people show up in face paint, but I would say The big thing, and that people, you know, now that we played in, for instance, when we played in Paris and London, two other cities where some people from the business are coming out, you know, like, you know, from the label and stuff, and they all commented on how crazy they thought it was, how the age span is so wide. There are people, you know, the people have been into metal since metal was a new thing. And then you have people way younger than us, teenagers and below, coming. So it has every shape and form of people who are into metal seem to be able to find something in us. And it's also very balanced between the genders. It's fairly equal amounts of men, women, boys, and girls at our shows. As you know, the cliche of a band like Rush is always the butt of the joke that it's only dudes listening to it, which is not true. My fiancé loves them. And you know, other artists, I don't know, like Bring Me the Horizon would be more girls, I guess, yes. You know, like, and then that's, you know, these typical things. And then always one of these are always considered to be better or more validated, you know. If young girls are listening to it, it's usually considered to be not as valid and good as if older guys listening to it for whatever reason. I think that's stupid. But we seem to get a bit of everyone. So we are more like ABBA.
ABBA. We have talked about your past, your present, and now how about Avatar's future? How do you see it?
Well, we want to make sure that we spread the information, knowledge, and the great joy that is to know our king. For quite some time now, we'll keep doing that until we make sure that everyone will have a chance to hear and see it, that we are able to reach. And then, you know, it's just the normal thing of moving on to the next thing. In terms of you guys being Belgian, we're playing, I think, Grass Pop.
Yeah.
This summer, and we have, you know, a bunch of other festivals. It's going to be a sweet-ass summer, and too early to announce details about the fall, but, you know, we'll be on the road. And no, we just keep going until we feel it's time to start the next chapter. And as always, and when it's Avatar, it's going to be something completely different.
Okay. Another maybe less serious question. If you had the choice between any band of your choice to tour with, who would it be?
That question, like, the correct answer would be probably Metallica or Iron Maiden, because that would give me the chance to play in front of as many metalheads as possible. So in terms of career, that would be the way to go. And both of them would be for great, you know, for personal reasons as well, obviously. But aside from that way of reasoning, I don't know, like, we just found out the name of this new band containing former members of Strapping Young Lad and Devin Townsend Project and stuff, Monolith, and as we have become pretty good friends with half that band in the last year, and I trust that they're going to be really awesome. I would love to do a tour with those guys. So, you know, you always have these people you know as friends that I would love to do stuff with. Otherwise, the tour we are on now is actually a dream tour like that, because Helsa Poppin', we've been knowing them for quite a few years now, and we have been talking about doing something like this for so long. And old Kerry McKee, who is opening up the one-man orchestra, he is a really old friend. You know, we've been friends for more than a decade. So it's also just the pleasure of doing something with close friends like that. It's what interests me the most. But other than that, yeah, Iron Maiden, Rammstein, Metallica, System of a Down, you know, bands that are much, much bigger than us.
Well, maybe when you are on festivals, you have the chance to meet them. I don't know if really this is the kind of thing you do when you are...
It can happen at certain times, but I'm not good at walking up to people just saying, you know, hi, I'm a big fan, you know, like I've done it to Dave Mustaine once, because he happened to stand and talk to my manager, so I didn't feel that intrusive. But otherwise, the Swedishness comes out of being a bit reserved and maybe overly respectful, because depending on the context, and if I'm out in public, you know, on a festival in whatever backstage area where people mingle, I don't mind if people mingling also say hello to me, but I don't always feel comfortable being the one saying hello to others.
Okay. We have a sort of tradition. For the last question, we let the band have a few words to the imaginary public. So the word is yours. You say whatever you want.
I have a message from our king. The king loves you. The king wants you. Because remember, also you can be a citizen of Avatar country. Glory to our king.